That, as I imagine you all realised, was the Golden Gate Bridge in California, in San Francisco. The simple question I want to ask next is, what is the difference between the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the things that I'm going to show you in the next clip? What I've just shown you is a collection of Neolithic axe heads. These are dated from between 4000 and 2500 years before Christ. Obviously they're not the only collection, there's various different collections and you can probably see them in various different museums around the United Kingdom. In the area they're found, they're considered to be evidence that man was there at the same time, because obviously man made them. And there is no dispute about this, it's just accepted. Despite this, they are considered evidence for intelligence, design, deliberate creation, and the presence of a shaping power beyond the natural physical forces that we know. In contrast, humans are made of millions, well, billions of cells, resources that aren't found naturally in abundance, and many different types of material, and are formed by a process, supposedly, that we've never actually observed, which is abiogenesis. Yet, human beings are considered by the same people generally as evidence for natural physical forces, no design, no deliberate intention to create something, just an accident, and they're not considered evidence for the presence of anything, any shaping force beyond the natural forces of nature. So this begs the question, why is it that something so simple is undisputedly accepted as evidence of design and of intelligence, while something which is infinitely more complex is actually disputed and said to be just the result of natural forces? It seems a complete paradox. No one looks at the Flint axe heads and says, well, actually, chipping is quite an easy process. Maybe these stones have just bounced around a bit on other rocks and various bits have chipped off until they've reached that shape. It's a natural process, it could happen. I mean, if the Earth is millions of years old, surely there's been absolute ages for this to happen. Why do we have to assume that it's to do with intelligence? It's strange that no one's saying that. Whereas in contrast, you have human beings which are vastly more complicated, vastly more complex. We can't even replicate them ourselves. We can't produce the complexity which is found in man. And instead of someone saying, well, obviously this shows intelligence as well, because look how complicated it is, it's not a process which occurs naturally. Instead of all these things going on, then people just go, oh no, that's just the natural forces of physics being applied to molecules. It seems very odd. In order to explain why, in reality, this paradox exists, we need to look at the psychology behind accepting intelligence. And to do that, I'm just going to go back to bridges, actually, and I'm going to compare the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the Maltese Azure window. Both of these bridges are beautiful, I would say. But largely that's where our treatment of them ends in its similarity. If we take the Golden Gate Bridge, we walk over it, we drive over it, we cycle over it. If it goes wrong, you get an engineer. So that's two things there. Third thing, you maintain the Golden Gate Bridge to the designer's specification. And the fourth thing, we credit the designer. If you go to Wikipedia, you type in the Golden Gate Bridge, there on the right hand side will be the names of the architects or the people who designed it, the civil engineers who designed it. They are credited. Now let's contrast that with another sort of bridge, the Azure window in Malta. 1. Not only do we not drive over it or cycle over it, we don't even walk over it, or at least people try not to get you to. When I was there, it was surrounded by various signs saying do not walk over, it's dangerous and so on. So we don't trust it. We don't walk over it. If it collapses, we don't sort it out. We just go, oh well. And in fact, I found out when looking at the Wikipedia page for it that apparently there's already a plan to rename it when it does collapse. So if it's in disrepair, if it's starting to fall apart, we don't look at it and go, oof, we better sort that out, call in an engineer. We just let it fall apart and then change the name of it from the zero window to pillars or so on or so forth. 3. We don't maintain it to any sort of specification. There is no designer, so we don't follow the designer specification when maintaining it. It's just formed naturally and it looks pretty, we'll visit it, we'll look at it, but when it starts crumbling, which it is, we don't start calling up the engineer who designed it and said, right, how can we sort this out? And then 4th, we don't credit any designer. If you look on the Wikipedia page for the zero window in Malta, you won't find civil engineer or whatever designer listed there because there wasn't one. So these are the fundamental differences between the Golden Gate Bridge and the way we treat that, and the zero window and the way we treat that, despite the fact, essentially, they're both bridges. The reason why we treat them so differently is because one is a product of nature and the physical forces around us, and the other one is a product of intelligent design, that of the engineers. With this in mind, it actually becomes obvious why people refuse to accept that human beings are a product of intelligence when they can accept that simple axe heads, stone axe heads, when they can accept those are. And all of a sudden it becomes very clear why they don't accept that human beings are the product of intelligent design. This is because of the consequences of believing that we are the product of intelligent design. If they believe that the axe heads are a product of intelligent design, nothing really changes for you. All you think is, okay, so human beings existed in Britain at this date. That's about all it is. Hardly any effect on your life whatsoever. However, if you accept that human beings are a product of intelligent design, that changes everything. Because that means we have to treat ourselves like the Golden Gate Bridge and not like the zero window in Malta. And let's think about those differences and how they would be. Treating human beings as something which is intelligently designed, like the Golden Gate Bridge, and not something which is formed naturally, like the zero window. The concept would be, first of all, like I said, you trust the person who built it. So we cycle and drive over the Golden Gate Bridge because we know someone designed it for that, we know it's safe, and so we didn't trust the designer. The zero window, we say, don't walk over it, don't cycle over it, because it could be dangerous. We don't know. Just don't bother risking it. So if we treat humans as being intelligently designed, we've got to trust the designer, which is God. 2, when the Golden Gate Bridge goes wrong, you consult an engineer. Preferably the same company of the people who designed it. Now, when life starts going wrong, God has given us instructions on what to do. He gives us a way to sort it out. You go to God because He's the one who designed us. Number 3, you maintain the designed product to the designer's specifications. Again, the Bible gives us the designer's specifications. This is how you should live. And things will function properly. If you don't, then things won't. If something starts going wrong, just let it crumble. You just think, oh well, what can you do? It's just a product of natural forces. And finally, if it's designed, you have to credit the designer. Just like with the Golden Gate Bridge, we know who the designers are. The designers are Alice, Morrow and Strauss. Those are the people who designed it. They're given credit for it. If we accept human beings are designed, then that means we have to give credit to the designer. And that means, just as when I look at the Golden Gate Bridge and I think, wow, that is a fantastic engineering, the designers knew what they were doing, I have to look at the human body and say, that is a fantastic piece of engineering, God knew what He was doing. So it quickly becomes obvious, actually, the reason why someone can look at a simple piece of stone and say, yes, that was designed, that is a product of intelligence, and how they can look at something infinitely more complex, infinitely more difficult to replicate and say, oh no, that's just a product of physical forces. The reason why they can do that is simply because the consequences of accepting that human beings are designed. The question becomes then, for us as individuals and as a society, how do we want to live our lives? Do we want to look around and see life like the azure window, see it crumbling around us, shrug our shoulders and say, oh well? Or do we want to look at life and see it like the Golden Gate Bridge, which is pretty much as magnificent today as it was the day it was first built?